control everything. Or yes, because on Glovo you can order anything you want. Glovo, you order, we get it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this live broadcast of the Senate, the afternoon sitting on this day of the 8th of November, the year 2022. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. On the order of business for the members of the Senate this afternoon, nominated Senator Kenyuri Esther Anyeni will be sworn in this office in the administration of oath. The nominated Senator Kenyuri Esther Anyeni will be sworn in this afternoon. Also lined up for consideration are 2 bills and 2 motions. 2 bills will be read for the first time. There is a bill by the Senator Honorable Moses Kajwang on the County Vocational and Training Bill. This is Senate Bill number 3 of 2022. It is a bill that is originating from the Senate. This particular bill will be read for the first time on the floor of this Senate this afternoon. There is also the County Government's Additional Allocation number 2 bill originating from the Senate, Bill number 4 of 2022. This is by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. Well, at the entrance of the Senate chambers, the Speaker of the Senate, Speaker Honorable Moses Amason Kingi, beg your pardon, Amason Kingi has stepped into the chambers. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good afternoon.
Just and free in a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, for those whose interests we are committed to our church. First order, please.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Nominated Senator Okenyuri Esther Anyeni.
Honorable Speaker, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you and the Senate our newest nominated senator, Senator Esther Okenyuri.
Welcome, Senator.
I'll swear by the Bible.
Are you saying English or
Swahili.
Go ahead.
Mimi Okenyuri Esther Anyeni nikiwa nimechaguliwa kama mwanachama wa Seneti, na hapa kwa jina la Mwenyezi Mungu kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu na mtiifu kwa watu na Jamhuri ya Kenya, kwamba nitatii, nitaheshimu, nitahifadhi, nitalinda na nitaitetea hii katiba ya Jamhuri ya Kenya, na kwamba nitayatekeleza majukumu yangu ya ubunge kwa uaminifu na uangalifu. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu nisaidie.
(2022, 2023, and 2, the first and second batches of nominees to 124 National Government Constituency Development Fund committees from the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board for the following constituencies. 1, Bahati Constituency. 2, Baringo South. 3, Belgut. 4, Bondo. 5, Budalangi. 6, Bumula. 7, Bura. 8, Butula. 9, Changamwe. 10, Charanganyi. 11, Chukaigamba Ngombe. 12, Dadaab. 13, Dagoretti South. 14, Eldama Ravine. 15, Eldas. 16, Embakasi North. 17, Embakasi West. 18, Endebes. 19, Ganze. 20, Gatanga. 21, Gilgil. 22, Githunguri. 23, Igembe North. 24, Igembe Central. 25, Isiolo North. 26, Jomvu. 27, Kajiado East. 28, Kajiado North. 29, Kajiado West. 30, Kaloleni. 31, Kangema. 32, Kapenguria. 33, Kapsaret. 34, Kasipul. 35, Kathiani. 36, Kuisero. 37, Kibra. 38 Kilgoris, 39 Kilifi South, 40 Kinangop, 41 Kipkelion East, 42 Kipkelion West, 43 Kipipiri, 44 Kirinyaga Central, 45 Kisauni, 46 Kisumu Central, 47 Kisumu West, 48 Kitui Central, 49 Kitui East, 50 Kitui Rural, 51 Kitui South, Kuresoi North, Lagdera, Laikipia East, Laikipia North, Laikipia West, Lamu West, Likuyani, Limuru, Mara, Magarini, Malava, Mandera East, Mandera South, Manyata, Maragua, Madhioya, Mbere South, Molo, Moyale, Msambweni, Muhoroni, Mumias East, Mwea, Mwingi West, Naivasha, Nakuru Town West, Nandi Hills, Narok North, Narok South, Ndaragwa, Njoro, North Hor, North Imenti, Nyakach, Nyatike, Oljorok, Odhaya, Pokot South, Rabai, Rarieda, Rongai, Rongo, Roysambu, Ruiru, South Imenti, Soi, Subukia, Suna East, Tarbaj, Teso South, Daraka, Tongaren, Ugunja, Wajir West, Wajir South, Webuye East, Webuye West, West Mugirango, Wundanyi, Yata, Baringo Central, Kacheliba, Kaiti, Kieni, Langata, Makueni, Marakwet East, Marakwet West, Mvita, Mosop, Nyeri Town, Saboti, and Tiati constituencies. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Majority. Majority Leader. Notice of motion.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provisions of Article 127(2) of the Constitution, the National Assembly approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and Senators to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Under subsection C1, Honorable Faith Wairimu Getao MP, 2, Honorable Mohammed Ali MP, 3, Senator Honorable Nderitu Kinyua MP, 4, Senator the Honorable Joyce Korir MP. Under subsection C2, the Honorable Mishi Juma Hamisi Mboko MP, the Honorable Kingola Patrick Makau, 3, Senator the Honorable Fatuma Adan Dulo.
That is a notice of motion.
That is just a notice of motion. The motion will come.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Do we have any? Do we have any? No. Okay, go on.
Order number 8, motion, appointment of members to the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Majority Leader. Yes, order. Honorable Makalimul, there's hardly anything going on. What is out of order? Which matter?
If you allow me, Honorable yes. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, in your communication last week, you did indicate that some of the oversight committees were not going to conduct their elections, and you instructed the select committee to meet yesterday, and today we are expecting some amendments to the listing of committee, the placement of committee members to the committees. And Honorable Speaker, we are getting to the main agenda of the day. We've not been updated on that matter, Honorable Speaker. And since it was your communication, Honorable Speaker, I was seeking for your indulgence on this matter so that we were updated on where we are on this matter, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Makalimul. Indeed, you are right. The matter came to House business. The committee, in fact, met, but their report was not ready. So we gave them time. In the event they bring the report before we progress with our business, I'll authorize a printing of a supplementary order paper. In the event they don't, then it's on the order paper for tomorrow. Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Article 127(2) of the Constitution, this House approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and Senators to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Under subsection C1, the Honorable Faith Wairimu Getawe MP, the Honorable Mohammed Ali MP, Senator the Honorable Deruti Kinyua, Senator the Honorable Joyce Korir MP, and under subsection C2, the Honorable Mishi Juma Hamisi Mboko MP, the Honorable Kingola Patrick Makau MP, Senator the Honorable Fatuma Adandulo, CBS MP. Honorable Speaker, it's imperative, Honorable Speaker, that members of this House note that PSC, as I've stated, is anchored under Article 127(2) of the Constitution and has a very critical responsibility of ensuring the efficient and effective functioning and running of Parliament. And by Parliament, Honorable Speaker, the connotation means both this House and our sister House, the Senate. Honorable Speaker, I further wish to thank the leadership of both the minority and the majority in both houses, both in the Senate and the National Assembly, for their joint engagement to ensuring that this process is indeed a success in nominating members who will represent us in the Parliamentary Service Commission, which, as I said, is a constitutional commission like all other commissions. And Honorable Speaker, since this is a constitutional commission like all other commissions, you know, Honorable Speaker, many of the other commissions, constitutional commissions, are oversighted by this House. And Honorable Speaker, this commission is no exception. And Honorable Speaker, you know, being the chair of this commission, Honorable Speaker, by virtue of your position as Speaker of the National Assembly, this commission is also subject to oversight. And the committee, Honorable, that oversights this commission is one very important committee that is now chaired by the Honorable Wachira Karani, the member for Laikipia West, the Members' Welfare Committee. Honorable Speaker, when we were doing the engagement on the selections committee, many members were afraid of joining the Members' Welfare Committee, Members' Welfare and Services Committee, and because of the connotation of its past names, Honorable Speaker. And I indeed had engagement with a number of members, and I was telling them this committee oversights the Parliamentary Service Commission. It is the only committee, I think, other than JLAC, that has that rare privilege of oversighting a constitutional commission. And therefore, there are many privileges that comes with oversighting your own employer, that is the Parliamentary Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, we are also aware that matters concerning members and staff welfare, both at the constituency level, our staff at the constituency level, and even those staff who are working in Parliament, are done or are processes that are carried out through the Parliamentary Service Commission. And there is therefore no doubt as to the amount of work that is on the entry of the incoming commissioners, Honorable Speaker. But Honorable Speaker, as we speak about staff welfare and staff matters, it is important, Honorable Speaker, that as we approve these commissioners, that they must bear in mind that they are getting in the commission to serve the interests of the entire Parliament. They are not being nominated into the commission to go and push their own personal agendas, to go and employ their relatives or their village mates, Honorable Speaker, but to ensure that even staff who are recruited by the Parliamentary Service Commission reflect the the diversity of our nation in terms of regional representation, ethnic representation, gender, and everything, Honorable Speaker, that pertains to equitable and fair representation of Kenyans from across the country. Honorable Speaker, as I move this motion, I wish therefore to implore upon the proposed members of this commission, once approved, to perform their duties diligently, devoid of any political party affiliations, as this is the only way to ensure that Parliament indeed is able to provide services and facilities as provided under Article 127, Sub-Article 6 of our Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the Parliamentary Service Commission Strategic Plan for 2019 to 2030, their 20-year strategic plan, provides that the PSC will adopt deliberate and strategic policies that will actualize a people-centric democratic parliament by the year 2030. In this regard, Honorable Speaker, this commission, if approved, has a lot required of them to ensure that members of parliament are facilitated to effectively and efficiently discharge their mandate in line with the Constitution, their mandate of representation, their mandate of legislation, and that of oversight. Honorable Speaker, speaking about a people-centered democratic parliament by the year 2030, Honorable Speaker, I think the last commission that developed, the commission that is whose term is coming to an end, when they developed this strategic plan, this 10-year strategic plan, were indeed visionary. And in their vision to ensure that we have a people-centric democratic parliament, Honorable Speaker, we must therefore ensure, or rather the members who are being nominated in the commission, Honorable Speaker, must ensure that all members of parliament, both here and in the Senate, are empowered, Honorable Speaker, are properly facilitated to ensure that they carry out their role of representation. And Honorable Speaker, on this note, I want to ask members, I know we've had a long-running fight with our siblings in the other house on the Senators' fund. And I really want to plead with my colleagues in this 13th Parliament. Let us be the house that will rise to the occasion to ensure that we also facilitate our senators to be able to carry out their representation role as effectively as we should also be facilitated, Honorable Speaker. And as we facilitate Senate, Honorable Speaker, even members of the National Assembly, since they are people's representatives. In fact, I think we are more people's representatives than senators who are representing counties in their house. And therefore, you also ought to be facilitated to ensure that you undertake public participation, you are able to get back to your people and get your people's views even as you come to represent them here, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I mentioned, the committee that oversights this particular commission, Honorable Speaker, they will not be oversighting the particular commissioners, but the commission as a whole. But they have a duty, Honorable Speaker, to ensure that the commission also enhances the growth of our democracy in the country, and more so parliamentary democracy. And therefore, I would be asking the Honorable Wachira Karani, the MP for Laikipia West and the chair of the Members' Welfare and Services Committee, to indeed prepare to engage with the commission as soon as this commission is sworn into office, for them to be able to appraise this House on what they are doing in order to be able to facilitate members in the advancement of parliamentary democracy, Honorable Speaker, and guard our parliamentary democracy selfishly. And therefore, the Honorable Wachira Karani, you also have your job well cut out. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, with this very many remarks or few remarks, I want to ask this House to approve this list as submitted, and I beg to move and ask the Honorable Leader, Deputy Leader of Minority, the Honorable Mbui, to second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion for the approval of the nominees to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Mr. Speaker, looking at Article 127 basically and the way in which it is designed, this commission has members drawn from the National Assembly and also Senate. And Mr. Speaker, because of the issue of coalitions, sometimes it becomes very complicated and very tricky to be able to identify the specific members that will serve in that commission. For example, in the minority side, we have ODM as a parliamentary party, we have Wiper as a parliamentary party, we have Jubilee as a parliamentary party. So I can tell you that the leadership has really struggled to be able to come up with a list that can be acceptable. We know that every member in this House is capable, every member can do this job, but it is only 7 members that are going to be put in that commission. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about the responsibility of this commission, Article 127(6). Because one of the things that these members, as they go into that commission, must know is that they are actually going there to represent us. And it is important that those that have been nominated, if the House chooses to pass them, Mr. Speaker, it is important that they know that their work is cut out for them. Mr. Speaker, we've just come out of elections and come and found that salaries of members have been cut, allowances of members have been reduced, House allowance has been scrapped. Mr. Speaker, it is so unfortunate. So it is important for the new commission to know they will really have their work cut out for them. Article 127.6 says that the commission is responsible for providing services and facilities to ensure the efficient and effective functioning of Parliament. So it is important that these new commissioners make sure that they do everything that is heavenly possible to ensure that members' welfare is considered and is taken care of. Mr. Speaker, as I finish, members of Parliament from the region around the city who constantly have to drive to their constituencies, that is the areas of Kajiado, areas of Kiambu, Machakos, they obviously do drive to their constituencies, just like members that come from very far. And it has been unfortunate that over the years, these members do not earn a single cent in mileage. And it is important, Mr. Speaker, that you realize that there must be some kind of equity. It is very unfortunate when a member can earn almost upwards of $1 million, when another one earns zero for doing the same job, just because one's home is located further than the other. So it's important, Mr. Speaker, that this commission looks into that matter and ensures that all members get their fair share so that they can be able to carry out their responsibilities as expected. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I second.
Order, honorable members, I now propose the question. Which is that pursuant to the provision of Article 127(2) of the Constitution, the House approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and senators to the Parliamentary Service Commission under subsection C1, the Honorable Faith Wairimu Gitau MP, the Honorable Muhammad Ali MP, the Honorable Senator Nderitu Kinyu MP, the Honorable Senator Joyce Korir MP. Under subsection C2, the Honorable Mishi Juma Hamisi Mbogo MP, the Honorable Kingola Patrick Makau MP, the Honorable Senator Fatuma Adan Dulo CBS MP. Is that the wish of the House? I'll put the question to putting the question, right? Is it the wish of the House that we put the question? Is it the wish of the House that we put the question? Obviously, the ayes have it. Honorable members, I'll now put the question. And remember that there is a precedent set in this House under the stewardship of Senator Marende that in a situation such as this, we vote for the block as is, either accept all or reject all. I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Article 127(2) of the Constitution, the House approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and senators to the Parliamentary Service Commission. A. Under subsection C1, the Honorable Faith Wairimu Gitau MP, the Honorable Muhammad Ali MP, the Honorable Senator Nderitu Kinyu MP, the Honorable Senator Joyce Korir MP. B. Under subsection C2, the Honorable Mishi Juma Hamisi Mbogo MP, the Honorable Kingola Patrick Makau MP, the Honorable Senator Fatuma Adan Dulo CBS MP. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Order. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable members, I want to acknowledge in the public gallery the following schools: Sergeant's Academy, Kibra, Nairobi; James Gishuru Primary, Njiru, Nairobi; Kirangari Boys High School, Kabete, Kiambu. On my own behalf and your behalf, I wish to welcome the students to the public gallery of Parliament. Next order. We go back to honorable members, order. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Order, Owen Bayer. It's out of order to take pictures in the chamber. Totally out of order. Honorable members, we'll now go back to the constitutional amendment proposal of the Honorable Gishimu and the Honorable Mule. So the screen is full. I don't know if the honorable members on the screen wish to speak to this. The Honorable Rindigiri Mugambi. The Honorable Rindigiri Mugambi. Give the honorable member the mic.
Mr. Speaker, you are going to chair this commission. This commission is leading this member. And now, if you go through audit,
yeah. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank you for the opportunity, but let me state for record purposes. For the record purposes, I've already spoken on that motion, and I want to remind Nyakal, you cannot engage. Dr. Nyakil cannot engage point of order. He cannot engage the speaker publicly and with a lot of noise.
No, I take exception to that.
Mr. Speaker, I have spoken on this motion. Thank you.
You have spoken already on this motion. Honorable Kakuta Maimai. Honorable Maimai.
Yeah. They don't know even what motion we want.
Honorable.
Okay.
Kakuta Maimai.
Speaker,
the floor is yours.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to make my remarks in regard to this motion brought by Honorable Gidinji and Honorable Mule. Honorable Speaker, as we have seen that CDF is critical for development of our communities, and as you know, we have seen a lot of work that is visible on the ground is from the CDF, and that it is so important to reinstate CDF to make it possible for us to be able to ensure more children are enrolled in schools. As we speak right now, there are so many children at home who have not been able to go back to school simply because they have not been able to get the fees they need to go back to school. In pastoral communities like in Kajiado, with the ongoing drought, a severe drought is going on, and normally the parents have to sell goats and cows to send to school. But considering this severe drought, a lot of children are home. They have not been able to go back. And CDF can be a lifesaver for many families and children who wants to go back to school. And therefore, I express my support, make sure that NGCDF has been reinstated to make sure that more children are able to go to school. Honorable Speaker, when I came to Parliament, I promised my constituents that I have a goal to build a secondary school in every location of our constituency. Because I know secondary education or high school, there's a big shortage in our constituency. And I promise my constituents that we are going to build more schools, more secondary schools, and making sure that every location have received a high school. Without CDF, that dream of many of our children in our constituency will not be able to have secondary schools in their locations. We have also heard many other leaders talking about the importance of making CDF even elaborate to make sure that as much as we cover so much about building of classrooms, aiding children with school fees, it will also be good to include the water project so that through CDF we can also commission water projects, whether it's drilling of boreholes, equipping of boreholes, and even doing piping water in some of these very remote and dry areas of our land. Therefore, CDF is really critical to the development of our communities and our constituencies. And therefore, I also add my support to make sure that CDF is reinstated right away so that our children can return to go to school and we can begin the work of building schools in our communities, drilling more boreholes in our communities, piping more water in our communities, because we have seen the work of CDF. NGCDF is even more visible than the work that is done by many county governments. And a combination of projects in schools from NGCDF and the county government, we can see a lot of development being done. Therefore, I basically rest my point saying that I strongly support reinstating of the NGCDF to make it possible for our constituents to be able to have more schools and to have funding for our children so they can return back to school. And lastly, I was also actually hoping that the national government and our president can actually declare and issue an order asking schools, particularly secondary schools, not to send the kids back home to go get school fees, because in places like in my constituency, Kajiado East, there's so much of desperation right now because of the many cows that are dying, and sending the kids back to school to seek for school fees, it's like sending them back forever because they cannot come back because their parents don't have the cows to sell, they don't have the goat to sell. So we should actually encourage and advise the schools to keep the children at school and allow them to sit for exams until when the situation has improved. Well, on that note, I would like to say that I wish to see NGCDF restated right away and the funding issued out by Treasury so that we can begin the work of rebuilding our communities that have been devastated by the drought. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I donate my time to my neighbor right here.
The Honorable Lillian Kogo. Is she in the chamber? The Honorable Felix Odiwor. The Honorable Felix Odiwor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Have you spoken on this?
No, I haven't spoken on this.
Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Of course, CDF to me is the only fund that the constituent seems to understand and know. That today, even if we had any other fund out there, you already have Wezo Fund, we have the NGAF, but every other person still asks where CDF is. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have people and constituents lining up, waiting and asking for school fees. And there's nothing you can tell them to understand that even the CDF itself has not been disbursed. Number one, we request that even as this motion continues, we must find a way to have the money disbursed to the constituencies as soon as possible, so as to mitigate the issues that are already going on around in the constituencies. Mr. Speaker, sir, I went to a village school, Nyangoma Boys Secondary School, PO Box 23 Bondo, sir. We never thought that one day that school will ever have a school bus. But through CDF, I went there again, and now Nyangoma enjoys a school bus. Mr. Speaker, CDF, apart from what is meant for, it should be opened up to also cater for more other things apart from security or education and sport. And even what is allocated for sports is even not enough, because we have enough talent out there waiting to be exploited. And we know very well that through CDF, we will be able to make sure that this actually happens. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want this House to push for immediate release of CDF so that work in the constituencies can continue immediately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Odiwor. Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me also to add my voice on this motion, and especially the motion coming at a time when we are doing pre-debate on this issue of NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, I happen to have been here in 2015 and saw the transition from the old CDF Act to the new NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, having seen that transition, I wish to make, and also having seen, Honorable Speaker, last Parliament, what we went through in terms of the BBI, I would wish, Honorable Speaker, to make this input into this motion so that the Honorable Mule and Honorable Kishimu can take cognizance of these issues and make amendments before publication, so that, Honorable Speaker, we can have a very good document to save our very good fund. Honorable Speaker, my concern is, once the bill is published, we will not be able to amend even a comma. That being the case, Honorable Speaker, I wish to request that, Honorable Speaker, the 4 funds which are being proposed in this bill should go in individually, let them run individually, Honorable Speaker, so that, Honorable Speaker, should a ruling of fate befall any of the bills, Honorable Speaker, let it be an issue of exclusiveness rather than, Honorable Speaker, the whole baby being here alive. Honorable Speaker, that coming from what happened with the BBI, whereby, Honorable Speaker, a few clauses made us to lose the entire document. That, Honorable Speaker, should not be the case. CDF being the backbone, Honorable Speaker, of devolution, we build devolution after CDF, Honorable Speaker, and when you go to the ground and walk around my constituency, for example, Honorable Speaker, last weekend I had the privilege of giving out a very nice school bus to one of the schools in my constituency, Honorable Speaker. The enthusiasm, the happiness, the joy that was with the students and teachers is enormous. And, Honorable Speaker, if you kill the CDF as it is today, it will be a very big blow to the administration of the day, and we don't want an administration of, Honorable Speaker, to suffer fate which is not theirs. We are happy the President has really thrown the weight behind the bill and is suggesting that we have a very good bill so that we have a good document to support the governance of his administration. Honorable Speaker, CDF is what is visible across the country. Wherever you go, is it a bridge? Is it a rough road? Is it, Honorable Speaker, a school? It's all built by CDF. When you look around and see what the counties have done, yes, they've tried. They've done it well, but they've not done it to the level of CDF. It is my prayer, Honorable Speaker, that we really put down a document that is going to support and make it for posterity, Honorable Speaker. On the issue of the Economic Stimulus Fund, Honorable Speaker, it is my wish and my prayer that we exclude it from the main document, Honorable Speaker. The PFM Act is alive. It gives the CS National Treasury powers to create a fund, to operationalize a fund of such a magnitude, Honorable Speaker. It is important that we allow the PFM Act to prevail. We allow the CS National Treasury to do that function rather than anchoring that function into the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. Otherwise, the three funds, Honorable Speaker, whereas they are good, I would wish that we separate the documents, let them run separately rather than being in one document. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I wish to support.
The Honorable Joseph Samal. The Honorable Joseph Samal. Is he in the House? Where?
Mr. Speaker, I had spoken about national government CDF, but...
You've already spoken, that's
yes,
okay?
I spoke.
I'll give the floor to the Honorable Mboko Milemba. Have you spoken? Continue. I'll give you. Okay. Give the mic to the Honorable Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute
Honorable
on this
members,
bill.
Those of you who have already
The
spoken
CDF,
on this, order, Honorable Milemba. If you have already spoken on this matter, you are advised to log out so that you do not crowd the screen unnecessarily.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, before the CDF, National Government CDF, was introduced, there were several attempts to try and make sure that funds were devolved from the central government to down the bottom at the village level. Such efforts were done by the former President Moi, and they included things like municipal councils and other items like district focus for rural development. The district focus for rural development did not optimize or get much out of this because it did not have a structure of operation. But we want to thank the then government of Mwai Kibaki under the Honorable who finally introduced CDF. And this was the first fund in this country to actually devolve funds down to the village and to the constituency and even to the location level. And since then, this is a fund that went ahead to also prompt Kenyans when they were making the 2010 constitution to realize that it was very important to devolve funds, because for the longest time, this country operated using the sessional paper number 10 of 1965, which was authored by one Tomboya, and which preferred that areas that had some development be strengthened, while those areas that did not have much development would remain behind. It was hoped that the areas which had attained some form of development would later on, using the multiplier effect, pull up the other areas that were down. So since then, Honorable Speaker, the fund has really served, and I will not dare to repeat what everybody has said about the importance of CDF. As we make this law, Honorable Speaker, I would wish to advise that there are certain areas which we have always spoken to in this House and which somewhat are not implemented. For instance, every House, I remember the 12th Parliament when we came in, we talked about the need to remunerate the village elders. I saw the same motion here recently, and it has gone like that. I also saw another area of school feeding program. This area was also talked about during the 12th Parliament when we were beginning, and equally, this time we have seen the motion come and go. What the recent members or the new members of Parliament may not realize is that these are motions which we always speak about, but we do nothing about them, because we end up saying that we are urging the respective ministries and departments to take action. And urging has proved to be nothing. Honorable Speaker, I want to propose that this input be put in this particular bill, that whereas most of the monies has been allocated for development projects, we create a bigger percentage, of course, while accepting that we need to increase the percentage of that CDF from 2% to 5%. But we create a bigger percent where we can use recurrent expenditure. Honorable members, if we opened a bigger percent for recurrent expenditure, we can allocate ourselves some functions, and I'll speak about two only, which are in their need in our constituencies. One such area are the village elders. Suppose in the 5% we are receiving, we actually clause there that each constituency be able to put down and pen down a certain agreed upon ratio of amount that will be paid to the village elder. We shall have completely and for once solved the question of village elders earning no stipend completely as they work. So I'm getting a solution, Honorable Speaker, to the issues or the question of the village elder working and not getting any pay. Another area I would want inputted in this would then be the area of feeding program to our students. Currently, as we know, most of our learners are in school, and there's hunger in the whole country, and people are suffering. There's drought and so on and so forth. So again, within the CDF, as we add this money from 2% to 5%, we could create an area to allow us to actually spend this money on recurrent, so that we are actually having a portion for every constituency, which specifically goes to the issue of feeding program of the students in the schools. We shall have helped this country by making sure that all students who are going to school will be having lunch in their schools, and therefore equalize the issue of feeding and the issue of education to all the learners. Honorable Speaker, the CDF's role in our development cannot be stumbled upon, and we are asking those who are in charge of this particular motion to actually go wide and talk to all the authorities. Currently, we are having a challenge with the Senate. The Senate is saying that they were not consulted. But I think a good idea doesn't need to be opposed by the Senate for the sake of it. They are simply opposing this idea because they are saying we did not consult them. But if this idea is good, I'm asking the senators of this country that you cannot block a good idea simply because of a consultation. We are here and available. Honorable Speaker, you are also available. Let the Senate consult you. Let the proponents of this bill equally consult the Senate leadership, so that when we go to the field, when we do break, we don't have counter voices that when we are speaking about CDF being entrenched in the Constitution, the senators are saying otherwise, that they need to be consulted before this is done. We also support, I particularly support, the fund created for the senators and equally for the NGAF. But finally, Honorable Speaker, there's that special fund for those who are living with disabilities. Honorable Speaker, as I speak here today, it's unfortunate that the National Council of People Living with Disabilities have decided to change the cards from the old ones to the new ones. Unfortunately, as the people living with disabilities, including the students who are in the special schools, are being asked, Honorable Speaker, to pay between 600 and 1,000 shillings for them to get the new cards. I think this is not something good, because already these students in special schools and people living with disability have no money. They are having a disability, and you want to surcharge them 600 to 1,000 shillings for them to get a card. So my proposal for this particular law is that that fund for PWDs and people living with special needs be enhanced, and specifically the enhancement go to students who are in special schools, so that they are actually accommodated, they are actually given all the foods when they are in the special schools, and all their total care for education is taken care of. That should be ring-fenced so that those students can actually also learn just the same way other students are learning. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, let me say, CDF has been very great. In the Muhaya constituency, we have been able to do so much that I can't mention. And currently, apart from having a TTC that we created using the CDF, which the government has now adopted, everything else has been done by CDF in the absence of county governments. And I want to look forward that this bill will go through to support the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, over the weekend I was attending one of the most precious meetings we do attend, and unfortunately everyone is crying about school fees. This law should go through very quickly so that the people of Emuhaya, the people of Kenya, and the parents of this country can get school fees for their children. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute, and I support.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Lilian Kogo.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for giving me this chance to speak to the matter on the floor of the House. I've not been able to speak this 13th Parliament since I got back, and that calls for me to first congratulate you on your being elected the Speaker of National Assembly. Congratulations, Papa. And together with your able team, together with the Honorable Gladys Boss, and all the team, we have also a new clerk, and I think Bunge is headed in the right direction. And I also want to thank the people of Rangwe, Honorable Speaker. Rangwe is a great constituency that took the pains of electing a woman in 2017. But as if that is not enough, they broke the history of not having members go for second straight terms by re-electing me again to Parliament. I want to thank the great people of Rangwe constituency and make a very good promise that on the platform that I was elected on good performance and working for the people, I'm going to put a lot of effort to work for the great people of Rangwe constituency in a better manner and give better services in this second term. Honorable Speaker, on the matter that is on the floor of the House that expects to make amendments to the Constitution, and where it touches on the NGCDF, many of my colleagues have spoken to this, but I must add my voice to it because CDF is a single most fund, Honorable Speaker, that can be touched and felt by wananchi at the ground. CDF, Honorable Speaker, is a fund that works beyond borders, beyond boundaries. And it was even improved to the extent that there is equity in its distribution. Constituencies that have bigger wards, that are bigger with more wards, are expected to get slightly more than smaller constituencies. But allow me to speak, Honorable Speaker, to what I have seen CDF do in Rangwe constituency. CDF is one single most fund that elevates infrastructure, education infrastructure in our schools, and it is also structured to help with security matters. We have used CDF, Honorable Speaker, in a single most term to buy 14 school buses. Buses that could not have been able to be bought by schools that are attended by poor pupils whose parents do menial jobs in the sub-county. CDF, Honorable Speaker, is well structured in its nature to the extent that the MP literally has no role and only does oversight, which is the main component of the work of a member of parliament. So if CDF works well, Honorable Speaker, then it means that members of parliament are doing a good job in their oversight work. So I want to support this, Honorable Speaker, and I want to say that we even need to increase it. We need to increase the figures, Honorable Speaker, because there is so much and the fund is limited. We have so many things that happen through CDF in the maintenance of roads that go to our schools, in the construction of classrooms, laboratories, in the construction of dormitories. And when these things happen and the members of the public, Honorable Speaker, see the changes that can be done through CDF and also in building leaders, and they can compare how a leader who was there at their tenure and a consequent leader, how they have worked. It is a very good way. CDF and its oversighting by members of parliament is a very, very good way also of gauging the work of members of parliament. We need to empower our people, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when CDF and these other funds, we have the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and then we also have other funds that come directly from national government to the grassroots. Honorable Speaker, this is one way that makes the government, other than the devolved functions, makes the government reach its people directly. So CDF should be enhanced, Honorable Speaker, as part of my contribution. Honorable Speaker, we need even to have a higher value that should be allocated for the bursary systems. Many of our poor families, many of our poor children who are not able to raise school fees, who are not able to fund their education, get funded through the bursaries that we get from CDF, Honorable Speaker. So I rise to support, and I say that it is important that the government takes enough effort to support this matter so that we constitutionalize CDF, so that people stop meddling thinking that CDF gives MPs weight. Members of Parliament, members of National Assembly have literally nothing to do with CDF. They just do their oversight role. There are structures that are there to govern and to manage this fund, and the fund has been used effectively. For the first time, Honorable Speaker, in the history of Rangwe constituency, we are able to have a sub-county headquarters that is modern. It is under construction. It is an ongoing work. And if it were not for availability of this CDF, then you would not know that you have reached Rangwe. But Honorable Speaker, in the next 3 months or so, we should have been able to finish a multi-million project through CDF. And that notwithstanding, we also do security lighting. We improved our communities. For any place where there is a government institution or otherwise, we have what we call corporate social responsibility. If there is a school, other than providing education, Honorable Speaker, a school should be able to help the community. And with the buses that we bought in Rangwe constituency, these buses, when they are given out, if they are not given for functions for school, the local community are able to use them, sir, at a very minimal subsistence just to fuel the buses so that they feel the benefit of having those schools around them. So I support the matter, and I congratulate you and your team, and I hope that this passes so that people stop interfering with CDF. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Starehe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this motion on the amendment of the Constitution for the NGCDF fund. First and foremost, where I come from in Nairobi County, Starehe constituency, most of my populace dwell in the slums, and these people have benefited from CDF through bursaries all over their lives. Saying that you want to scrap off CDF as of now will be detrimental to the gains that have been made by CDF in my constituency. Children from the slums of Mukuru Kayaba, children from the slums of Marigoini, and children from the slums of Watanyayo, among many other slums, have gone to school courtesy of CDF. And the way CDF fund hangs in the balance, we are in a chaotic situation in my constituency because people are despairing by day, asking me about when is the bursary going to come back, because as we look into the first term, which is going to happen from January next year, parents in those slums are in a panic mode. Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support this motion for the constitutionalization of the CDF so that once and for all, the CDF fund can be contained in the Constitution and we'll never have to debate about CDF again. Among the gains made by the CDF fund in my constituency, we've had so many people talk of insecurity in these slum areas, but the NGCDF fund has been able to help bolster the security systems by constructing modern police stations, by being able to support the security system in our constituency in ways that we have been able to curb crime in these slum areas. The use of CDF in my constituency also has helped so many children who are not school going and who cannot afford school fees. They've been able to pay for their secondary school fees. And in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, sir, in my thinking, we would be having a discussion about bolstering the fund, not about scrapping the fund off, because of the functions of the CDF have been very effective in our constituencies. For example, we have these tertiary courses that are offered by the NGCDF, these soft skills that have been offered. You find, like in my constituency, we've been able to take some people to these small courses like the driving courses, tailoring courses, maybe baking courses, and other soft skills that these people have been able to gain through the CDF fund. So in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, sir, we'll be thinking of incorporating more activities for the NGCDF and expanding the fund to be able to help us address the issue of unemployment. If we are able, like my friend John Kerry has put up a motion seeking the NGCDF fund to cater for artists and artisans, to be able to equip our artists and artisans with skills, technology, tools, and machinery and capital. I think that would be a step in the right direction, in that these graduates of the NGCDF bursaries may be able to be empowered to gain skills, be empowered to make a living out of what they learned. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support the motion on the consolidation of the National Government Constitutional Development Fund, and I support the motion. Thank you so much.
Member of Parliament for Mosop constituency.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, allow me to thank you again for this opportunity that you've given me to support this bill on entrenching the funds of NGCDF on the Constitution. NGCDF, Madam Speaker, has truly played a major role in our country. The funds from this NGCDF has truly helped most of the families who are from humble backgrounds in terms of bursaries. It has helped so many schools to construct structures. Most of the places, especially Mosop, where I am from, most of the schools was constructed because of the funds from NGCDF. So by entrenching these funds in the Constitution, Your Honor, is going to really ensure that the development of this country continues uninterrupted. I want to believe that every member has a project in his or her constituency that actually was done through CDF. And I want to continue also to thank the government as well for continuing to increase the funding on NGCDF, because as of last Parliament, the NGCDF funds that was distributed to several constituencies was just exactly the same. But this present parliamentary term, they go as per the size of the ward of the constituency and the ward in that constituency. So I am supporting the NGCDF to be entrenched in the Constitution so that we will continue with the development in our areas. Also, I want to also support the Senate Oversight Fund. For a very long time, Senate has continued to do oversight without funds. And as such, it is very crucial to allow them and to give them funding to help them to continue with what they are supposed to be doing. NGAV also, National Government Affirmative Action, the funding that they've been receiving has also been limited. And as such, by entrenching in the Constitution, it will guarantee the development of this country, it will guarantee the development of our constituencies, and also no interruption. Like as we know as of now, as much as we believe that it's still, we will still be able to receive the national government CDF, but the Supreme Court had ruled unconstitutional. So by entrenching it, we will never have to deal with this issue again. The development will continue. The constituents, every time I'm home, Madam Speaker, are asking us, when are we going to receive our CDF? Because they've always budgeted, they've always believed the NCDF is one of the funds that actually can be seen, the development can be seen compared to other funds of the government. So I want to actually urge and continue to support the bill that we continue with the NCDF, but more so is to entrench it in the Constitution, that it will continue to support our country, to support our development, and we continue as a country. Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I support the motion.
Okay, my login has failed. Oh, yeah, thank you. Member for Soy constituency.
Okay. Oh, Kumba was there. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to say, from where I'm sitting and all the members, CDF is very important to the development of our constituencies, and I want to support the motion of entrenching CDF in our constitution. As we know very well, Madam Speaker, there have been various litigations. As a result, the CDF Act of 2013 was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, which was not in order. And for such issues to be resolved, the only way it can be resolved is by making sure that at least we entrench the CDF in our constitution, so that we can do away with all manner of litigations for those people who are anti-development. CDF has done a lot in Soy constituency. We have been able to achieve in development of our schools, in development of, in making sure that bursaries are available, in making sure that our schools have buses, and is sorting so many issues that is affecting our population. So what I want to say is that, Madam Speaker, as we look at entrenching the CDF in our constitution, it is very important that we know very well the schools will be opening in January. I want to call upon the CDF, the NGCDF committee to move with speed, to make sure that the committees are in place, to make sure that the allocations to the various constituencies have been approved, and also to make sure that at least before we break for our recess, the money for CDF that is due has been approved and be sent to our constituencies, so that we can sort the issues of bursaries. And I'm also calling upon this House to also look at the oversight role the Senate is playing. I know there have been various issues affecting the Senate. They have been requesting for the oversight funds, and this House has not approved. Let us make a difference by making sure that we also consider the Senate and approve the oversight funds. And as we approve the oversight funds for the Senate, it is also important that we look at ourselves as MPs for the National Assembly, and we make sure that at least also we have an oversight fund, so that all of us who are doing oversight can have the oversight funds. With those few remarks, I want to say I support the motion. Thank you.
Mike, please. Member for Laikipia East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also start to support this very noble idea. And I happen to have served this house when we do not have the privilege to have CDF. And Madam Speaker, I can assure this house that members were really frustrated. They were demoralized in doing their work because they had to rely on government which was not really willing to support the people at the grassroots level. We fought for the bill, and it became law, and the subsequent parliaments that followed were able to enjoy this privilege. Today, as we speak, anytime Kenyans hear that an amendment to the Constitution, they are always up in arms. But as you can feel the crowd today, very little resistance is there when people hear that CDF need to be anchored in the Constitution. Why is it so, Madam Speaker? It is because Kenyans have directly enjoyed and benefited from CDF. It is the only fund that a Kenyan can access so easily because they only need to access their member of parliament who are always available for them. This fund touches the most needed people in our constituencies and the country at large. Today, as we speak, members of parliament are facing a very rough situation on the ground where Kenyans are so worried that this fund might be abolished. And if you ask them today, they are asking not whether it will be scrapped, but when are they going to be able to benefit from the monies that come to the constituencies. The country is already facing very severe times, hunger situation in the country, the drought situation, and most of our students are already sent home because they cannot afford, their parents cannot afford to pay for school fees. And therefore, it is incumbent of this House to ensure that we anchor this law so that once and for all, the decisions can be made without fear that our people can be able to enjoy this fund, whereby it is already well defined. It is touching on education and more of security. You know, the only best gift that you can give to your children is education. A very huge number of Kenyans cannot afford to educate their children. And therefore, as we speak, if you look at the lines that are coming up, the request that we have today for people who require bursary, and again, remembering although education is free in this country, the issue of feeding program has become a nightmare, whereby 4,000 shillings that is required for every term in day schools is already a disaster. Our parents cannot afford to pay. The feeding program itself is not available for our students, and therefore it is important, Madam Speaker, to ensure that the parameters that we are putting in, we are not only discussing of this fund, but even whether we can make additional funds to support this program. The dignity of our people and the dignity of members of parliament, these two must also be protected. I remember when we could not be able to support our own people who came lining up each and every day in our houses, requiring us to support them through medical fund, which today we can be able to support them through CDF because we can afford to pay NHIF cards for them. On special needs, Madam Speaker, you look at the society and the very needy ones who can even go to tertiary education, those who can pay, for example, assisting our border riders, issuing them with licenses, whereby these licenses could not have been accessed and they were harassed each and every day. We are supporting Kenya Kwanza government, which approach is bottom up. The only fund that can be able to get to our people and help this government implement bottom-up strategy is CDF. Because at the end of the day, the funds have been with the people. The funds can be able to be accessed. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, if you look at the beneficiaries of this fund, you'll be able to say that it is really touching on our people. Lastly, Madam Speaker, it is good for us to remember where we are coming from, be able to remember those people who initiated this program, the likes of Virginia Karoe. And also, we know we have a president like Mwai Kibaki, who is also supporting this program. And we are very sure that with our president, Dr. William Ruto, we will be able to support this program, and our people will benefit, and they will be able to finance their people and ensure their well-being is taken care of. I support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Laikipia East. I now call upon Member for Gilgil Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support the discussions that we are having on this very important legislative proposal. And I want to, first of all, congratulate Honorable Mule and Honorable Githinji, because this is the closest we have come to actually addressing the issues that we have had with CDF, that we have had with GAF. Instead of complaining out there, Madam Speaker, instead of paying a lot of fees to lawyers to go to court, I think we are now using this floor appropriately, that we deal with this matter once and for all, that we entrench it in the law, we put it in the Constitution, so that this debate of whoever is sitting on the chair of either the legislation, of either the executive or even the judiciary does not have the power to actually take it away from the people. And Madam Speaker, I think, as my colleagues have said, if you go around the country, in many places, especially the rural constituencies, Madam Speaker, you will realize the only visible fund that can be seen on the ground is actually CDF, that we have enough things that we can stand up and say. Madam Speaker, it is the third generation of county governments, and you cannot compare the work that CDF has done in the last few years, Madam Speaker, with what and the billions that have gone to the county governments, Madam Speaker. So I want to support this idea, and I also want to laud this House, because under the standing orders this time, Standing Order 114, we now have a window to actually ventilate. And this is also a form of public participation, Madam Speaker, that when you have a legislative proposal, you can bring it to the floor. The Speaker allows that we comment on it, because the nature and the law that governs the issue of constitutional bills means that you cannot amend even a comma or a full stop, Madam Speaker, when it comes to the floor. What that does, Madam Speaker, is that we will talk to it, and at the end of the day, it passes the way it is, or you lose it altogether. So this window, Madam Speaker, not only gives the issues to the public, it also serves as public participation, but more importantly, it helps to actually enrich the law. And the drafters, I'm sure they are taking their notes, Madam Speaker, that even after this session of this debate, we'll be able to get a full printout of this ventilation by members, so that as you craft that law, they come up with the best that it can get, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is through CDF that secondary schools that we have built, like the 35 that are in my constituency, Madam Speaker, have administration blocks, have laboratories, can compete even with Sarehe, can compete with other areas, Madam Speaker. Schools that never thought in their lifetime they could even have such infrastructure, Madam Speaker. Primary schools that have been neglected for a long time, Madam Speaker. Today, if you go to a school called Kapkures in my constituency, Madam Speaker, that had a mud-walled administration block. If you go to schools that had mud classrooms like Meli Primary School, Madam Speaker, these schools now have gotten a facelift and have gotten dignity courtesy of CDF. Madam Speaker, teachers have had terrible working conditions, Madam Speaker, from toilets, from classrooms, from offices, Madam Speaker. We have had classrooms sharing two classes, Madam Speaker. You find one class is facing one side and the other one, grade 2, is facing the other side, and it is actually a chaotic scene, Madam Speaker. But through CDF, we have been able to ensure that we have put these standards to be keen to even academies and private schools, Madam Speaker. That meaning that we have been able to equalize every child, regardless of whether you're going to a public school, regardless of whether you're going to an academy, Madam Speaker, you are able to get the same standards and almost similar infrastructure, Madam Speaker, courtesy of CDF. Madam Speaker, courtesy of CDF, we have so many people who have been actually direct beneficiaries, from employees, from the committees that are constituted in the constituencies, Madam Speaker, from the people who work in the constituency CDF offices, Madam Speaker. All these people are dependent on this CDF, Madam Speaker. And what this CDF has done, Madam Speaker, is actually set the pace of how other funds should be administrated. What do I mean by that, Madam Speaker? CDF has set the threshold of how much money should go to bursaries, what percentage should go to construction, what percentage should go to sports, what percentage should go to environment. Madam Speaker, the law is actually very clear on how that is done. I don't think there is any other law, Madam Speaker, that has such clear guidelines on how administration of the fund should be done, Madam Speaker. And this is actually what the county government should borrow and import, Madam Speaker, so that you don't end up spending 80% to pay workers, some of whom have actually been shown by audit to be ghost workers, and spend very small percentage to development, Madam Speaker. But the push and shove with CDF, Madam Speaker, has had many enemies. Right from people who feel like the CDF fund has made them look bad because they are not delivering. And that way, we have had very many sponsored cases back and forth from the judiciary. And we have had a long time and a long battle with that, Madam Speaker. So this law will actually put that to rest and will be able now to deal with issues as they come. Madam Speaker, the issue of the National Government Affirmative Fund, Madam Speaker. I know from the 11th Parliament where I sat, the 12th Parliament where I sat, this fund was actually a fight between members representing single-member constituencies, as it felt like it's a competition. But, Madam Speaker, what the affirmative seats have done, including the women rep position and the nominated position, is incubate leaders that today we can have the governor of Meru, who was a women rep, being a woman, that today I stand here having benefited from a nomination, Madam Speaker, that today we have the governor of Homa Bay, who was once a women rep, Madam Speaker, that today we have the Honorable Mishi Mboko, who was once a women rep, we have the Honorable Rueda from Lamu, who was a women rep. Madam Speaker, it has become a fertile incubation grounds to get members to run for other seats and to be able to compete outside there, Madam Speaker. But they have had a challenge, because when you're talking 100 million for CDF, you're talking 7 million for a constituency, Madam Speaker, and you're talking billions from the county government, and these women have had a hard time to actually keep up and be able to deliver in their mandate. So putting this in law, Madam Speaker, then it will be able to give more women the power and be able to run and give them the mandate and give them the power and the push they need to be able to run. And Madam Speaker, what that would mean is that more and more people and more women will be going to be governors from women rep position, will be going to be single member constituencies from women rep position, will be going to be senators, will be going to be deputy governors from the women rep position, Madam Speaker. And what I have learned, Madam Speaker, over the time, the last 3 parliaments, is that we have gone a full cycle, Madam Speaker. We have had people here who sat in 11th Parliament. When I sat in the Senate, they sat in the National Assembly and they bashed the Senate. But in the 12th Assembly, Madam Speaker, they ended up being senators, and others who are senators like ourselves, Honorable Elachi, Honorable Ngera, we ended up in this house in the National Assembly. So what I hope is that we can look at this legislation for posterity, that it is not a personal issue, Madam Speaker. Today, even the Speaker of the National Assembly was a senator. I mean, we have governors who are senators. We have senators now who are governors. We have people who have served in the executive. We have people who have served in the judiciary like yourself and are now in this house, Madam Speaker. So I hope that we can look at it from that posterity, that we are not making the law for ourselves, but for years to come, Madam Speaker. That said, I hope that we can look at the constitutional issues that these issues do not hamper the implementation of this law, Madam Speaker. We hope that we get the drafters of this law getting to pick the issues. I personally like the idea that we should also look at the idea of separating the funds, Madam Speaker, because one may have an issue with one and go to court and get it to be shot down as an unconstitutional and also affect the others. So I hope that the legal and our legal teams will be able to look at the best way to actually get these houses to work together. And I hope that we can also learn from experience, and that we are having the third generation county governments, Madam Speaker, that we have gone all around it, that will be able to ensure that all of us, the Senate, the National Assembly, are at the same table and are doing this to be able to achieve the same goal. Madam Speaker, that said, I hope that we can be able to fast track this legislation, that we get it to the Senate and the Senate also passes it, Madam Speaker, so that the issues we are grappling with right now, I mean, if a girl does not do her KCSE right now or her KCPE, Madam Speaker, because they have been sponsored by CDF, within a year, that girl is a parent, whether a baby or not. So, Madam Speaker, I hope that this law can be fast-tracked so that we get to the end of it. With that, I support.
Thank you, Member for Gilgil. I now call upon Member for Kipkelion East. Okay. I now call upon Member for Kangema.
Madam Speaker.
You're there.
I had actually participated in this. I'm waiting for the next.
Okay, yes. Then you can. All right. Kindly, honorable members, if you have spoken, if you could kindly remove your cards so that others can have an opportunity. Kindly remove your cards. I can see Member for Chesume had spoken and his name is, he's got his card there, so if we can remove our cards. Okay, I'll now go to Member for Kibwezi West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You can go next.
Join the rest of our colleagues in supporting the amendment by the Honorable Mole and the Honorable Gishimo to entrench the CDF, to also entrench the NGAF, and to also create the Senate Oversight Fund through a constitutional amendment. Mr. Speaker, I think there is no gainsaying as to the work that CDF has done in this country. Members here have eloquently enumerated the several projects that have been done by CDF. As a first-time member of Parliament, I have perused the records in my constituency, and one of the key things that touch our heart, touch the heart of women and our children, is that I've realized in every year my predecessors were funding over 5,000 kids in secondary schools and over 2,000 kids through their university education. Today, Madam Speaker, as we debate here, many of those children who are benefiting from CDF, some of them are now not going to school because CDF has not been disbursed. Having said that, Madam Speaker, therefore, it is only prudent as a representative of the people of Kibwezi that we support CDF being entrenched in the Constitution so that the legal issues that have been bedeviling the fund can be dealt with once and for all. Madam Speaker, number two, I have also been following the legal battles that the CDF has gone through, from the High Court through the Court of Appeal, and recently the pronouncement at the Supreme Court. I think it has been clarified, Madam Speaker, that the decision of the Supreme Court did not affect the National Government CDF Act of 2015, but rather the predecessor of 203. And therefore, we wish to urge the board to move with speed now that the committees have begun to be being tabled in this House, to move with speed to disburse the fund, because the act that creates the fund currently is not annulled, as it were. But even as we say so, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry, as we construe the law and the Constitution, I think we also need to take care as judges, as members of Parliament, as ordinary citizens, that we do not elevate technicalities above the public good. That even as we look at CDF, we cannot look at CDF as a fund for a member of Parliament. We have to look at CDF as a fund of the people, as a public interest fund. And when we are saying CDF is illegal, we must also exercise our mind as to what will happen to the thousands and thousands of poor children who go to school through that particular fund. I know, and without appearing to disparage the judiciary, that they know of children even within their own localities whose fees is paid through CDF. And therefore, by continuously looking at technicalities, the small issues, as it were, and ignoring public good, they are actually making the poor children to never access an important commodity known as education. Madam Speaker, we are looking at a constitutional amendment, and the threshold is quite high. Mr. Speaker, needs to be put as to what is an oversight fund as against CDF. In my understanding, CDF is a developmental fund. Developmental fund, it is not a fund for the member of parliament. It is a developmental fund that funds classrooms, that funds security, that funds bursaries. The oversight fund that is contemplated in this amendment is a fund to facilitate the senator to move around the county. And Madam Speaker, I was computing. I am not very good in mathematics. I am good, but I am not as good. But the percentage that has been provided in the amendment, looking at the last audited accounts, translates to about 200 million or thereabout shillings per annum. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, if you divide the 200 million with 47 counties, you realize that each county will get between 4 and 5 million. This is money for a senator to fuel their car, to move around the county, to see whether a project that the county government claims to have been done has actually been done. This is a fund for the senator to facilitate research on oversight of the devolved funds. And so, Madam Speaker, even as our colleagues in the Senate say that they require more funds, I wish to refer them that CDF also started from long before. I remember in my constituency in the year 2003, after President Mwai Kibaki took over the reins of power, and our member of parliament then was Richard Kalembe Ndile, may God rest his soul in eternal peace, we only got about 6 million shillings. That was the first disbursement. And therefore, we need to start from somewhere. And we need to distinguish that the money that the senators are going to be given is not money that is going to fund development. They are not going to be asked to build classrooms. They are not going to be asked to build police lines. They are not going to be asked to do bursaries. It is money to facilitate the office of the senator to undertake oversight. And therefore, in my view, we are beginning at a good place, and members of the public need to be advised properly so that we do not politic and lose such a progressive amendment. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to congratulate the member for Matungulu, also to congratulate the member for Gishugu, the Honorable Gishimu, for this well thought out amendment, for this very timely amendment, and to also pay tribute to the initiators, the original initiators of the idea of a constituency development fund, like has been said before, the Honorable Engineer Murwe Kariuki, and the third President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Mwai Kibaki, because if it did not start then, we could not be where we are. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I support the entrenchment when the time comes so that the issues of legality of CDF do not bedevil us anymore, because in my understanding, a constitutional provision cannot be declared unconstitutional. I therefore beg to support and will be to urge members to avail themselves in the House at the critical hour to make the voting to meet the threshold. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I now call upon member for Kisii County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the motion because CDF, as some perceive to be a loophole to put money in some individual pockets, there are so many people, Madam Speaker, including Donya, who is standing here from Kisii County, who has benefited from CDF bursaries. In fact, so many families can applaud CDF because it has paid bursaries to their needy children at various learning institutions. I can tell you, Madam Speaker, CDF has done a great control on the imbalances in regional development, which had been previously brought about by partisan politics. Talking about fighting poverty as leaders, what does the president even promise its people? He says, my government will protect, my government will provide. Then this is through CDF, the government is releasing resources to the vulnerable groups, to the grassroots. In fact, anyone fighting CDF should be seen as an enemy of fighting development. Let me say, for example, when you move around, you will see classes built by CDF. You will see projects funded by CDF. I stand to ask, what if this CDF was dealt away with? As per today, we should be discussing on how can we increase more resources to CDF so that we can even see our CDF issuing through the members of parliament and even through the women reps, sanitary pads to our young girls, some who cannot attend classes because they lack so. On top of it, even CDF should be added to provide school feeding programs to our school-going children, because there are some students who stay at school for the whole day without going for food because there is none that they can get at their homes. So members of this hallowed house, we should be trusted and not be treated as suspects. When you meet some few people out there who don't understand what it entails for the government to release these resources, they are saying that that is money meant for MPs as their pocket cash. Honestly, it has never been a pocket cash for a member of parliament who has its people in his or her thoughts, minding on how, like now January is around the corner. This time there are students who are calling us, they are saying help us so that we can clear our fee balances to enable us sit for the exam. So I arise to support that CDF is a rich thing for our constituents, and CDF is not a loophole for politicians to have petty cash, and CDF is very good and very good for our people. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Two, audit the onboarding process in each basis, stating the particulars, including the tenure of contracts signed. 3, give reasons why workers on long-serving contract terms, which have been on renewable basis, have not been absorbed to permanent and pensionable PP terms, noting that the long contract basis goes against the Employment Act 2007. And finally, 4th, explain the criteria used in determining absorption into P&P basis, leaving behind the experienced staff who have been working on renewable contracts in the county government for over 5 years. Senator Chute Marsabit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It is so referred. Senator Agnes Kavindu. Senator Kavindu is not in. No one holding her brief. We proceed to Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Information, Communication and Technology on allegations of management of the Media Council of Kenya funds. In the statement, the committee should table the council's audited financial statements covering the last 3 years, shed light on allegations of mismanagement of the council's funds, and disclose irregularities, if any, giving the particulars of those complicit while stating disciplinary measures preferred against any culpable officials, investigate reports of alleged diversion of council resources, including funds which had been earmarked for training of journalists during the COVID-19 and general election period, as well as deployment of money and motor vehicles to office of the CEO. Table board resolutions in regards to training, stating how strict the council has adhered to its training policy, and to investigate reports of nepotism in recruitment of staff by the media regulator. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that has actually been discussed within the industry for about 2 years, and some clarity is being sought in terms of resources, funds that were allocated to the election coverage, funds that were also allocated to cushion journalists during the COVID-19 pandemic, and there is allegations on misappropriation of funds that were also supposed to go for training. So, Mr. Speaker, because of the urgent nature of it, I urge you to refer this to the Standing Committee of ICT.
It is so referred. Senator Boni Kalwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the status of pending bills in Kakamega County as at August 2022. In the statement, the committee should provide a comprehensive report on the pending bills figures accumulated in Kakamega County as at August 2022, indicating the amount owed to respective service providers and financial year in which the pending bills relate to. 2, should explain why the service providers were not paid on time and state whether the pending bills form the first charge in the new financial year in the county of Kakamega as required in the laid down regulatory framework. 3, state whether the county government of Kakamega adhered to the procurement law in procuring goods and services with specific reference to procurements on the pending bill list, stating details of when the tender was floated and who won the award. And finally, Mr. Speaker, outline the plans, if any, put in place by Kakamega County government to ensure all the contractors whom the county government owes money are paid before the end of the current financial year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I request you to forward this to the Committee on Finance and Budget.
Senator Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to actually recommend my senior Honorable Boni Halwale for raising this matter of pending bills. Only how I wish that you would have raised the question on all the county governments in Kenya, because the issue of pending bills, Mr. Speaker, is the big elephant in the House. I think we are all aware that many of our county governments, including Kisii County government, has got pending bills totaling over 1.5 billion shillings, and the people who supplied materials and equipment have not been paid for the last some have taken longer than 9 years. I really recommend my brother for having raised that issue, and I hope that our committee will be seized and will be engaged on this matter so that we can come up with clever ways and ingenious ways on how we solve this problem once and for all. Because, Mr. Speaker, the problem that we have is that without sorting out the pending bills issue, then we continue having an accumulation of the same pending bills of the incoming governments, and therefore it just becomes like a merry-go-round. I hope the committee will be seized and will come up with recommendations that will solve the very critical issues in our country affecting pending bills. Thank you.
Senator Ojenda.
Speaker, may I? Let me just do this first. Mr. Speaker, on this, thank you, Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, on the pending bills, I just want to weigh in, and I want to agree with Senator Boni Halwale that this is very, very key, Mr. Speaker, sir. The pain, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that service providers go a long way in securing loans or to securing credit facilities to supply counties, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, years down the line with accumulated interest, the suppliers are then told that they cannot be paid. And the concern of Senator Boni Halwale is a real concern for all suppliers in many counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think last year a bill was brought to this House. I don't know if that bill was passed on the prioritization of accumulated bills arising in counties. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I believe that it is time to relook at pending bills. My own home county, Kisumu County, has pending bills that are unpaid. Suppliers are complaining, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I pray, Mr. Speaker, sir, how I pray, that the concern of Mr. Halwale be a concern for all counties. I know all senators here would want to bring up the issue because most counties, Mr. Speaker, sir, owe suppliers a lot of money. How I wish, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this Senate would act and complete the process of legislation so that bills previously accrued, Mr. Speaker, sir, are paid before new ones, and so that we also know the criteria that is used to prioritize later bills when earlier bills remain unpaid, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Kiambu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we do not arrest the issue of pending bills in the counties now, it's still going to be a menace in the future years to come. Because, Mr. Speaker, truth be told, new governors are not willing to pay pending bills of the previous governors. Sometimes they even stop projects that were ongoing or that were started by previous governors because they also want to be seen to be working by starting new projects. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to come up with a solution as a Senate whereby no new projects or no new facilities to be built unless the governors pay this pending bill to a certain percentage. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have World Bank projects at the counties. All those projects are always paid on time, and they are implemented by the counties. Mr. Speaker, if this model by World Bank is working, why don't we then use it at the counties, even when the county governments are implementing or doing those projects, Mr. Speaker? So I think it's a high time as a Senate we come with a solution, and the sooner the better, Mr. Speaker, because if we don't do that, now this is the time the governors have already started swearing in their CECs. They are going to commission new projects. We are going to accumulate more pending bills, and we might never even be able to pay those who worked for our county government. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a high time we did that as a Senate.
Thank you. Let us rest it at that. Next order, please.
Order number 8, the County Vocational and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide a framework for the establishment of systems for the administration of training in vocational education and training within a county and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the county government's additional allocations, number 2 bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide for the additional allocations to county governments for the 2022-2023 financial year, the responsibilities of national government and county governments pursuant to such allocation, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, motion, appointment of members of Parliament to the Pan-African Parliament.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to move the motion that pursuant to Article 5 of the Protocol to the Treaty of Establishing the East African Economic Community and relating to the Pan-African Parliament, the Senate approves the appointment of the following members of Parliament to the Pan-African Parliament. 1. Senator Professor Margaret Kamar, EGH MP, Senator Danson Vuya Mungatana, MGH MP, the Honorable Rahab Mukami Washira, MP, the Honorable Joseph Kalasinga Majimbo, OGW MP, and the Honorable Esther Modoni Pasaris MP. Mr. Speaker, this is a fairly straightforward motion, almost equal to a procedural motion, and I would like to spend very little time here because parties have consulted, coalitions have agreed, and recommended these particular members. I want to particularly laud the experience of my younger brother, Senator Danson Mungatana, who I worked with for many years. And in fact, when Mungatana joined Parliament, Mr. Speaker, he was a little boy in 2002. And he was the apple of the eye of the then Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Michael Kijana Wamalwa. And Wamalwa actually met him, an assistant minister, and Mungatana stood out. He did very well in the office of the Vice President, I remember in 2002, and Mungatana was completely devastated when Mike died 8 months later on. So I'm hoping that the good lessons that he picked from Michael Kijana Wamalwa, who was an outstanding statesman in this country, that Mungatana will have an opportunity to exercise this when he'll be at the Pan-African Parliament. I can say similar things about Professor Kamar. Professor Kamar is an outstanding legislator in this country, and we know that she's going to add value. I don't want to belabor this straightforward motion, and I want to request, in the interest of bipartisanship, I want to request my sister Hamida Kibwana to second me. Hamida. What informs the case of Hamida? Ni wetu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Without any delay, I second and I support my brother, Senator Khalwale, the two. I think I don't have, seriously, I would be lying to say much about Senator Mungatana and Senator Kamar because we have just met, but the few times or maybe the few months that we have gotten to know one another or engaged, I support 100%. I'm sure they have what it takes to represent us at the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that pursuant to Article 5 of the Protocol to the Treaty establishing the African Economic Community and relating to the Pan-African Parliament, the Senate approves the appointment of the following members of Parliament to the Pan-African Parliament: Senator Margaret Kamar, EGH MP, Senator Danson Buya Mungatana, MGH MP, the Honorable Rahab Mukami Washira, MP, the Honorable Joseph Kalasinga Majimbo, MP, and the Honorable Esther Mudhoni Pasaris, MP. This list has been hanging here for a while. Is there a response to this, or? Senator Mazayo Stewart.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza nataka kuwapongeza wale waliochaguliwa kwenda katika lile bunge la Afrika lililoko huko Johannesburg, Afrika Kusini. Bwana Spika, waliochaguliwa hapa tunaona kwamba nambari ya kwanza ni Senator Professor Margaret Kamar. Nina imani kabisa ya kwamba profesa kazi aliyoifanya akiwa katika kazi zake za umma, alifanya kazi katika chuo kikuu, amekuwa mwalimu, amekuwa na taaluma, na takriban ni kusema kwamba ni mtu ambaye amefuzu katika kazi ambazo amezifanya hapo awali. Kwa hiyo tuko na imani ya kwamba Professor Margaret Kamar anaweza kuifanya hii kazi ya kituwakilisha sisi katika hilo bunge la Afrika. Wa pili akiongozwa na ndugu yangu Danson Mungatana, pia anao taaluma. Ninavyomwelewa mimi ni wakili mkubwa katika taifa letu la Kenya, na vile vile amekuwa katika hili bunge kwa miaka kadha, 10 nafikiri, na hivi sasa ataanza muhula wake wa 3. Sijui kama hiyo ni kweli, lakini nina imani katika rekodi yangu ya akili ni kwamba iko namna hiyo, na kwamba yeye ataweza kufanya ile kazi ama juhudi zake za kuweza kutuwakilisha katika lile bunge la kule Afrika Mashariki, Afrika ya Kusini. La mwisho ni kwamba hawa pia waliochaguliwa hapa, Rahab Mukami na Joseph Kalasinga na Esther Mudhoni Pasaris, wote walio katika hii list, Bwana Spika, nina imani ya kwamba wataweza kutuwakilisha, hususan nikiongea katika hawa wabunge ambao wako hapa, wabunge wetu, nikiwa na imani ya kwamba wataweza kutuwakilisha na kuletea ripoti nzuri. Mimi nilikuwa katika hilo bunge na ni bunge ambalo liko katika hali ya juu sana, na nina imani ya kwamba baada ya yote haya wataweza kuletea ripoti ya kutueleza yanayojiri ndani ya Afrika. Asante Bwana Spika.
Okay. Senator Mazayo, I allowed you to proceed on, but as you're aware, you cannot mix two languages. I don't remember a word list in Swahili, orodha. So, Senator Medhu, you're using the word list. In Swahili, it's orodha.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Hata mimi nataka nijaribu, kwa sababu kuna masomo tulikuwa nayo juma lililopita tukifundishwa na kiongozi wa walio wachache, Senator Stewart Manzayo, na akaniarifu kwamba kama wewe ndio nikupe jina lako ambalo linakufaa, nikisema Speaker Amason Jeffa Kingi, nitaongeza mzee wa orodha wa moyo wa dhahabu, ambayo ni GH kwa lugha ile nyingine. Na kwanza kabisa nataka niunge hoja ambayo imeletwa na seneta wa Kakamega, Senator Daktari Boni Halwale, na nikiangalia kwa orodha ile ambayo imeletwa siku ya leo, naona pande zote mbili ama watu wote ambao wamewekwa pale, watu watano, tajriba ni jambo moja ambalo limetiliwa maanani sana na limetiliwa mkazo sana. Nikimwangalia wa kwanza katika orodha ile, Senator Margaret Kamal amekuwa mbunge, amekuwa seneta, amekuwa naibu ya speaker, amekuwa waziri wa elimu ya juu, amekuwa naibu waziri wa mazingira, na wana tajriba kubwa sana. Nikimwangalia seneta wa Tana River, alipata nafasi ya kuwa mbunge miaka mingi sana iliyopita. Nimekuwa siku nyingi nikimkumbusha wakati akichaguliwa kuwa mbunge mara ya kwanza, mimi nilikuwa mtoto ya darasa la 4. Kwa hivyo yeye amekuja na tajriba kubwa sana, na jambo lile mimi ningetaka niseme kulingana na masomo ambayo tuliyasoma juma lililopita, wameenda pale kwa kutuwakilisha sote sisi. Kwa hivyo tumewatuma kwa lile bunge la Afrika, ili nao waende wakasimame kwa niaba yetu. Kwa hivyo watuletee maneno ile ambayo watakuwa wamepata ya Jumuiya ya Afrika ama ya Afrika nzima. Kama vile pia na wewe Speaker umekuja hapa, tulikuwa tumekutuma kwa kazi ambayo ni ya kitaifa, ya kimataifa, kazi ya kimataifa, na tumeona umetuwakilisha vizuri sana. Kwa hivyo mimi sitaki niseme kuzidi hapo. Nikisema kuzidi hapo unajua nitaharibu kabisa. Nataka nikushukuru sana. Asante.
Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that you reserve my comments for the next order. That is why I'd press the request. I thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gataya, more fire.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker. Nimekagua orodha hii kwa umakini mwingi zaidi, na nimeona kwamba yale majina yamepeana hapa ni majina ambayo yanaheshimika katika jumba zote mbili. Na Mheshimiwa Speaker, hii ina maana kwamba nikiangalia jina la kwanza jirani yangu, ndugu yangu Mheshimiwa Dan Boya Mungatana ni mchapakazi, ameingia katika bunge katika sasa karibu miaka 15 imepita. Kwa hivyo tunatazamia kwamba Mungatana atatoa tajriba ya kutosha na uwakilishi wake utatufaa kama sisi watu ya seneti katika Kenya, hii nchi yetu ya Kenya. Tukiangalia jina kama la Profesa Margaret Kamar, huyu ni mheshimiwa ambaye amesifika kote nchini. Vile vile tunaona kuna mheshimiwa Rahab Mukami, vile vile tunaona kuna Joseph Karasinga Majimbo na Honorable Esther Muloni Pasaris. Haya majina mheshimiwa Speaker ni majina ambayo yako na uzoefu wa kutosha, na tunajua kwamba watatupatia sifa katika shughuli zao za kuwakilisha sisi kama bunge letu ya Seneti. Kwa hivyo mheshimiwa Speaker, naunga mkono na tunawatakia mema katika hii safari yao ya kuwa katika bunge la Kiafrika. Naunga mkono.
Senator Monteith Batuli Betty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to rise and also support my colleagues in congratulating the members who have been appointed by this Honorable House to go and serve at the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, looking at the list, it is encouraging to see that the hard-working members of this House have been appointed, people with experience, people we want to look upon as leaders and also as honorable members. I congratulate them and wish them well and say that they go and represent us well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleagues on behalf of all the 5 of us who have been asked to serve in the Pan-African Parliament for your very kind remarks. Thank you on behalf of both sides of the House, our coalitions that nominated us here. Thank you, Whip, for moving this motion. On behalf of all of us, I say thank you. Mr. Speaker, the Pan-African Parliament came into existence after the Abuja Declaration of 1991 provided for the establishment of that House. It was in the following years, in 2004, that actually this Parliament started operating. Mr. Speaker, as we go to take our positions in that place, we will remember that we are there as Pan-African parliamentarians to give platform to the issues and the challenges that are affecting the continent of Africa. Mr. Speaker, right now, we are all ravaged by the effects of climate change. And it's from the north to the south, from the east to the west, the cry is the same. And right now, we know the presidents are meeting in Egypt, and they're discussing the same issues, Mr. Speaker. We will offer a platform where we will discuss issues to do with trade in Africa, within the regional economic communities, the RECs, Mr. Speaker, intra-Africa trade. We will discuss issues to do with trade imbalances affecting trade between Africa and other European countries. Mr. Speaker, I want to promise this House that we will be worthy representatives in the flow of that Pan-Africa Parliament, and we shall keep you updated, informed yourselves, and you will count us worthy of the faith you have given us. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. May I join my colleague, Senator Mungatana, in thanking members of this House and members of the National Assembly for passing this list. I also want to thank the coalitions where we come from and our political parties for nominating us to this position. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2004, I was in the East African Legislative Assembly when the Pan-African Parliament was started. And I remember when I joined the delegation that was led by our own member, Honorable Gangwana, to go and express our support as the East African Legislative Assembly. And I remember when we went there, the voice of Kenya was really required as far as nominations to committees and the speaker was concerned. Everybody wanted to know what Kenya was saying. I want to agree with Senator Mungatana that we can give an assurance for sure that we will never let you down as a house and we will never let the country down. We know that we are going there at a time when the integration of the African unity is on the table for discussion. About 3 years ago, that was some discussions started in Rwanda by the heads of state that there is need to go towards integrating the continent so that we have an integration, a customs union, and monetary union for the continent. I want to assure this House and the country at large that we will be pursuing that government agenda strongly to make sure that we do well. Mr. Speaker, finally, I would like to also laud the parties for what they did. If you look at this list, for the first time in the history of committees in this House, we have a majority membership that is female. We have, out of the 5 members, we have 3 ladies and 2 males, which means there is a very strong recognition now that we can all operate equally as a house, and I really didn't want that to go unnoticed. Must notice that the National Assembly gave us 2 females and 1 male, and here we are. I want to also assure my colleague as I congratulate him because he is going to be the leader of delegation because this is a committee that is led by the Senate while the SCPU is led by the National Assembly. I want to give him assurance that we are going to work hard to make sure that we have an impact in the African Union. With those remarks, once more, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank members for the support that they have given us. Thank you.
Senator Sige.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, once again for granting me this opportunity to join my colleagues in commenting the nominees to the Pan-African Parliament. Looking through the list of the nominees, the first Honorable Senator Professor Kamar has got a wealth of experience both in the legislative arm of government as well as the executive because of where she has previously worked from and in. Similarly from the House, the Honorable Senator Danson Buya Mungatana, my learned senior, has equally a wealth of experience both as a parliamentarian and also in the executive, for he previously have served in the office of now the current terminology cabinet secretary or deputy cabinet secretary. Honorable Speaker, the rest of the team, I believe, as I congratulate them, they will carry the flag of the Parliament of Kenya, the country Kenya, and they will share that which is happening across Africa, across the world, and carry, I would wish to encourage them to carry the flag higher, and also have the experience that this House can share beyond them as the nominees from the House. I, as I conclude, say congratulations and wish them the very best as they serve the people of Kenya in the Pan-African Parliament. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting me the opportunity to add my voice in congratulating and supporting the honorable members that joined the Pan-African Parliament. I'm so excited that Senator Mungatana mentioned the issue of climate change, and especially now, Honorable Speaker, that as we deal with the issue of climate change, Honorable Speaker, this is a challenge that will be achieved at the regional level. Honorable Speaker, the issue of climate change, as we deal with it, we must also face the issue of climate justice. Honorable Speaker, as we struggle on individual countries dealing with the issue of climate, we should take note that Africa only contributes to less than 4% of global emissions. But here we have the industrialized nations that really contribute to the issue of climate change. Then the regionally, the issue of climate injustice must be addressed in as far as the commitments that the industrialized nations need to make in mitigating the issue of climate change. I support the Pan-African parliamentarians that are getting into the new term, and I pray that you push this agenda as a region rather than having countries fight for it individually. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator Beatrice. The Honorable Senator Okech A.D. Gisheru.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity also to take and my time also to congratulate my colleagues. I'm actually very happy that Senator Professor Kamar, whose mind of experience, together with my brother Senator Mungatana, are going to represent us. I think
Senator Osotsi, what is your point of intervention?
I don't have any point of order. I just want to catch your eye so that you give me an opportunity also.
Very well. Noted, Senator.
Senator Sosi, am I a crowd? I'm blocking you from the speaker. Anyway, I think that it's very critical that I do appreciate my colleagues for getting this opportunity to present us. As we all know, the Pan-African Parliament was formed so that we can be able to, have African people's voices collectively on some of the most pressing emerging issues of our time. And as a young person coming from Kenya and looking at this privilege that you two have together with other colleagues in the lower house, I think that is critical that I also encourage you to look into matters of governance. The African continent today, one of the highest levels of challenges that we have is the concept of democracy. The concept of democracy amidst things like high cost of living, where constantly we see African countries facing issues of democracy as that issue of a peaceful election, such that institutions that anchor democracy are not given power. So long as an election has been done and then we have got a declared result without any kind of conflict or any kind of problems, then it is assumed that then that is democracy. And this is a concept that I think is very critical, because I think that even today as we speak, our country is faced with serious issues of high cost of living. And in such a country, which I don't think is dissimilar with other African countries that are going to meet, when you've got this serious high cost of living and yet democracy is reduced to a simple matter of rubber stamping of leaders in offices, then it becomes a very difficult issue to deal with. So I hope that you can represent some of our voices on how Africa can be able to invest more in strengthening institutions of democratic institutions in the restorative countries that are going to meet with. Otherwise, we wish you well, and we look forward to giving you the support that you need as you engage with our colleague countries, our colleague legislatures from other countries that are going to meet. Thank you so much.
Senator Karungo Thangwa Paul. Asante sana Bwana Spika. Unajua nilikuwa namtizama rafiki yangu Mungatana wakati sisi tulikuwa tupigania kuwa mwenyekiti wa makamati. Yeye alikuwa ametulia vilivyo. Siku anajua mahali anaelekea. Kwa hivyo sijui wahenga wa kisasa wanaweza sema ukiona vya kimya basi jua vya tarajia. Bwana Spika, yangu ni kuwashukuru wale ambao wameteuliwa kusimamia Kenya katika bunge hili la Kiafrika. Na kama Senator Kamar, Professor Kamar amesema, katika bunge hili la Kiafrika wamesema kila nchi husika inateua wabunge 5. Na pale wanaelekeza kusema kwa uchache mno mmoja awe mwanamke. Kwa uchache ama agalao mmoja awe mwanamke. Lakini Kenya imeonelea kwamba tutapeleka wanawake zaidi hata kuliko wanaume. Hiyo ni kuonyesha nchi hii yetu ya Kenya inatilia maanani uongozi wa wanawake. Kwa hivyo kama bunge la Kiafrika lasema tu kwa uchache mno leta mmoja, sisi tumepeleka 3. Kwa hivyo mimi ningetaka kuwashukuru wakifika pale wasimamie Kenya vilivyo. Ndio angalau nchi zingine zione kweli wanawake wakipata nafasi uongozo ni ule ule. Bwana Spika, walioteuliwa Senator Mungatana, Senator Kamar na wengine wako na uzoefu wa kazi hii, sababu wamekuwa wakihusika sio tu kwa kutunga sheria, pia wamekuwa wakihusika katika mwongozo wa serikali kwa upande wa executive. Kwa hivyo wakifika pale najua watakuwa na uwezo mkuu wa kuwakilisha Kenya kwa upande wa kutunga sheria na upande huo mwingine sijui tuwahitaji kwa Kiswahili huo wa executive. Kwa hivyo asante sana na mimi naunga mkono mjadala huu na tutapitisha. Asante.
Thank you very much, Honorable Senator. Also, now I've got you, so take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also join my colleagues to support this motion and say that the senators who have been selected are up to the task, and we are very sure that they are going to deliver. Mr. Speaker, allow me to also raise some concerns about Pan-African Parliament. Mr. Speaker, even as we have sent our very best to represent us, I am very concerned about the visibility of this Pan-African Parliament. We don't feel it, Mr. Speaker. We don't feel it at all. And Mr. Speaker, we know that in the next few days, we are also going to elect members to IALA. That is another parliament that we are not feeling it. We are putting money there. They are giving us reports. But a common mwananchi there in Vihiga and Kakamega, or wherever in the country, is not able to feel what these people do. And the same applies to Pan-African Parliament. So we hope that our very best members that we have sent to represent us are going to make the difference and make Africans feel that they have a parliament that is able to represent them at the continental level. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that this particular parliament is supposed to basically oversee the AU policies and programs and also participate in budget making for AU. That is one area that we are also saying we are not able to feel what this parliament is doing, because AU is not making progress, major progress that we see other integration forums globally doing. And we have a lot of challenges. If you look at the functions of this particular parliament, one of it is to promote human rights. We do not have human rights in most African countries. Congo here and many other countries in West Africa. We see serious violation of human rights. So this parliament exists to ensure that the problems of Africa, especially economic problems and integration problems, are resolved. And you are aware, Mr. Speaker, there are so many treaties that AU has passed, and those treaties remain unimplemented. I remember we passed a treaty on single African air transport. That treaty is largely unimplemented. There is no reason why, if I want to travel to another African country, I have to go to Europe to connect from Europe to that African country. Then it means we are not serious as Africans. So I want to urge the members who are going to represent us to make the difference and make this a serious parliament to represent Africa, and not just a talking shop which generates reports, and those reports, when they come here, they are tabled and nothing happens. For those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you very much, Senator Osotsi. Senator Asige Kagehi Crystal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to also support this motion and to congratulate the names that have been tabled on this list to join the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I have a special excitement to see Professor Kamar's name on this list. I lovingly call her my godmother because of the support and encouragement that she gives me as I execute this role. And of course, because she was one of the senators that presented me into chambers the day I made my oath. Mr. Speaker, Africa is known to be a continent that largely has young people, and reports show that most of our population in Africa is part of the youth. Reports also show that there are about 80 million people with disabilities living in Africa. I would like to sincerely pray that in the near future, hopefully, these kinds of lists going forward in committees that are being considered also put into consideration that they should not only have wording or language that says one shall be a woman, but also that one shall be a member of the youth and one shall be a person with disabilities, so that these committees that are representing us as Africans can holistically and completely represent us and how the future of Africans really does look like. But other than that, I am very happy and congratulate everyone on the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Crystal. Senator Onyonga Richard.
Asante ndugu Spika kwa kunipa nafasi leo nizungumze hapa, kwa sababu ni muda mrefu sana kuzungumzia ndugu zangu ambao nimefanya kazi nao. Mheshimiwa Mungatana tulikuwa naye serikalini mbeleni tukiwa wachanga sana. Ni jamaa ambaye tunamheshimu na ninafikiria kuwa wakati ataenda kule kwa bunge la Afrika Kusini, kazi yake itakuwa nzuri kama mwenye chama wa timu ambayo inaenda pale kwenda kushughulikia maneno la bunge la Afrika kutoka nchi ya Kenya. Mama Senator Professor Kamar ambaye ni mama tunamheshimu. Mimi nina historia naye kwa sababu ndugu Spika, unajua nimekaa hapa bunge zaidi ya miaka 20 na kwa hivyo nimeona vile ilikuwa kwa kiti cha uspika na kazi yake yenye heshima na vile tunavyomheshimu. Ndugu yangu wa tatu ni jamaa anaitwa Kalasinga. Kalasinga, Mheshimiwa Boni Halwale unamjua. Wakati uliopita, miaka 5 iliyopita, mimi nilikuwa naibu wa party leader wa chama cha Ford Kenya, na Kalasinga nakumbuka nikienda kule Bungoma kwenda kumfanyia kampeni, na ni shukran sana kuona kuwa amerudi bungeni, kwa sababu nilikuwa sijajua, na tena amepewa nafasi hii kwa sababu yeye ni mchanga, hajakaa bunge miaka mingi na ameanza kujizoesha. Kwa hivyo itakuwa ni elimu nzuri kwake kisiasa kwenda kule nje kutetea masuala ya Afrika. Na wale wote ndugu zetu ambao wameenda kutuwakilisha, tungependa kuwasihi hivi: Afrika yetu ina mambo mengi, lakini Afrika ni bara ambalo lina uwezo. Wa Afrika ni watu ambao wanafanya kazi kwa ugumu. Hapa tuna rasilimali za kutosha, na ningependa Mheshimiwa Mungatana na Mheshimiwa Kamar, mkiwa pale, jaribu kuwauliza wenzetu wa Afrika ni nini haswa kwetu sisi. Hata ukiona tuna rasilimali chungu nzima, ukiona tuna mafuta, tuna dhahabu, tuna kopa, tuna kila kitu, lakini kila wakati Afrika bara letu lina changamoto nyingi kila wakati. Tunauliza Mwenyezi Mungu asindikishe vizuri, mwende pale mkafanya kazi nzuri. Mnajua bendera ya Kenya inapaa sana. Mheshimiwa Mungatana, unajua wakati mmoja nilikuwa naibu wa waziri wa mashauri ya nchi za kigeni wa nchi ya Kenya. Tukiwa pale, Mkenya akizungumza unapata Waafrika wengi wanasema haya mambo nyinyi mnajua namna gani? Tunamwambia ni kwa sababu tumesoma vizuri na tuna mwelekeo fulani wa kisiasa na kiuchumi. Kwa hivyo ningependa kuwasihi mjitahidi, muhakikishe bendera yetu imeendelea kupaa vizuri, na mtuletee matunda ambayo itaweza kuonyesha kuwa Kenya ni nchi ambayo inaendelea vizuri, tuna amani na demokrasia. Na pia nyinyi sasa mtaenda represent, mtaenda kufanyia kazi wa Kenya wote, na mkiwa pale msije mkaanza tena kusema huyu sasa sijui chama chake ni gani nini. Sasa nyinyi ni wa Kenya, na mimi nasema muende mfanye kazi nzuri. Ndugu Spika, ningependa kusema kuwa huu mswada upite, kwa sababu haya majina ni ya heshima na hawa ni viongozi ambao tunawaheshimu sana. Asante ndugu Spika.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Senator Onyonka. Kwa lugha ya Kiswahili represent inasema kuwakilisha. Asante sana. Senator Omar Sheikh Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the motion, and the names which are here, all of them are capable. They are representing us properly. When others has been said, but when it comes to when I see Mungatana, I also feel appreciated that pastoralist also is represented there, and is capable. And Madam Khamara, also Professor Khamara Pia, she is capable of the same. And thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. Noting that there are no more members who wish to give their interventions on this, I invite the mover to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every time I sit in this house, I can't help but be impressed. Ordinarily, in the many years we have been in this parliament, a motion like this usually attracts little or no interest. But when you look at the contribution, you look at the contributors, you look at the mix, it's very exciting. The motion has attracted 15 distinguished contributions from our senators, amongst whom there are 6 contributions from our women senators and 1 contribution, powerful contribution from the VIP, visually impaired Crystal Asige. I continue discouraging her from using the word VIP because I'm VVIP. So are you sure you're that close to me, VIP? Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all of you, the 15 of you, for supporting this very important motion. And I'm sure that Professor Kamar, Senator Mungatana, our colleagues from the other house, when they go to Midrand in South Africa and they sit in the house, whose president is His Excellency Fortune Kiraru Mbira, who I was pleased to watch yesterday when he was addressing the heads of states in Egypt. He'll be impressed and he'll know that Kenya is a country of educated people, people who speak fat English from London. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge our colleagues who are going to represent us that you must rise and ensure that the Pan-African Parliament is truly the seat for acceleration of human capital, social and economic development. And this will be represented this time, this development, social especially, if you come out strongly and speak to the important issue of climate change. Climate change is so serious, and as Hamida has captured, the negative contribution by African countries to climate change is actually negligible. The people who actually pollute the globe are the first world countries, and they are very busy actually planting trees. Brazil, Central Europe, Canada have the best forest cover. We should learn from those best practices. In fact, I expect that sometime going forward, the Pan-African Parliament should decree and pass a motion that the developed countries that contribute to negative climate change should afford African women access to free cooking gas. Perhaps because that is the only entry point by the women living around the Mau and the women living around the Kakamega forest when they go in to look for dry twigs to cook for their families. So these people who are polluting the world should actually give these women free access to LPG for cooking. Secondly, I would like to urge our colleagues to raise your voices in the Pan-African Parliament on the unacceptable state of conflict and war in the world, with special reference to the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine is totally unacceptable, and therefore the Pan-African Parliament should lead the African government in demanding for a faster settlement of that conflict. With those many remarks, I thank you and I move.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 841, I determine that this motion does not affect counties and therefore all senators are eligible to vote. And Honorable Senators, I therefore now put the question that pursuant to Article 5 of the Protocol to the Treaty establishing the African Economic Community and relating to the Pan-African Parliament, the Senate approves the appointment of the following members of Parliament to the Pan-African Parliament. 1. Senator Professor Margaret Kamar, EGH MP. 2. Senator Danson Buya Mungatana, MGH MP. 3. The Honorable Rahab Mukami Washira MP. 4. The Honorable Joseph Kalasinga Majimbo OGW MP. And lastly, 5th, the Honorable Esther Mudhoni Pasaris MP. May those of honorable members, may as many of those who vote yes say aye. Aye. May as many of those of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Next para.
Order number 11, motion, promotion of mental health facilities for mothers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Promotion of mental health facilities for mothers. That Mr. Speaker, that we are aware that according to the World Health Organization, globally 10% of pregnant women...
Senator Mida, approach the table, please.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that according to the World Health Organization, globally 10% of pregnant women and 13% of women who have just given birth experience a mental condition referred to as perinatal depression, which is higher in developing countries with 15.6% during pregnancy and 19.8% after childbirth. Further aware, Mr. Speaker, that women who go through stillbirth and those that lose their children during delivery are taken to the general maternity ward, where other mothers with healthy babies are recovering, causing them mental anguish and adversely impacting their mental health. Noting that integrating mental health care into primary health settings requires training in psychiatric care and providing consulting support to primary care providers, considering that there are not enough mental health care providers to meet the current and growing need for mental health services. Mr. Speaker, appreciating that the Health Act under Section 6.1 provides that every person has a right to reproductive health care, which includes the rights of access to appropriate health care services that will enable mothers go safely through pregnancy, childbirth, and the postpartum period, which would include the integration of mental health in perinatal care as recommended by the National Mental Health Task Force in its mental health and well-being towards happiness and national prosperity report. Now thereof, the Senate urges the Ministry of Health in collaboration with the Council of Governors to ensure that all county health facilities with maternity wings allocate a separate ward for recovery for the mothers who have gone through stillbirth or those that have lost their babies during delivery. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate continuous mental health training, and the provision of counseling support in the perinatal wards for all primary care providers in all counties. Number 3, establish counseling facilities to all county health facilities with maternity wings to provide counseling therapy to mothers who lose their children through a miscarriage, during delivery, or through stillbirth. And the last is establish counseling facilities to all county health facilities with maternity wings to provide counseling therapy to mothers who are suffering from perinatal and postpartum depression. Mr. Speaker, I think this was just my motion is self-explanatory, because the mothers have suffered a lot in terms of mental health. In Article 43A, 1A of the Constitution provides every person who has the right to the highest attained standard of health. Poor mental health in this country, Mr. Speaker, has been a silent problem. It is devastating to see a mother who has given birth to a stillbirth or has had a miscarriage, and maybe after stillbirth the baby has died, and you're put in the same room with a mother who has given birth. So you can imagine this mother is actually breastfeeding, and the other one has lost a baby. It is unfortunate that we don't have separate facilities for such mothers. In Kenya, Mr. Speaker, we have about 1 to 5 female adolescents between 15 and 18 who fall pregnant. Where do they go? They suffer that kind of depression. They have to fight with families, community, and people judge them. And so at least we need a separate facility to where the young mothers can be counseled. Mr. Speaker, women also go through rape and you get pregnant. And even in marriages, you can get pregnant out of marriage. You can get raped out of marriage and you get pregnant. Where do this... We only have the maternity wing and only takes care of those mothers. But we definitely need a devolved kind of course, system now that health is devolved, to have such structures, separate wings for mothers, for young mothers, for raped mothers, for mothers suffering postnatal depression and postpartum depression. Mr. Speaker, as women, after childbirth, some of them lose their heads. They go, they're regarded as mental cases. Where do they go? Unfortunately, they're taken to Mathare Hospital or other mental hospitals. But if we had such facilities, they will be taken through counseling, just to massage their depression. So these facilities are quite needy. It's long overdue. And also, Kenya has fewer specialist health workers serving as counselors, to support. And you can imagine, we are, for example, in Nairobi, we are about 4 million, sorry. And in Kenya, for about 40 million. So if you have about only 500 specialists in this field, that means even if the facilities are open, we'll not have enough, caregivers to support, or health workers. So even this one, we need that support to also train health workers or counselors to support our women. Then also we lack national programs for pre and postnatal depressions. We need to have capacity building to ensure that at least people are knowledgeable in terms of how to support such women and other mental disorders. And also we have low public awareness on this issue. I'm sure some of you are getting to know today, but women have really suffered. So what we are saying is let us also create awareness on such issues. Mr. Speaker, there's really an urgent need for appropriate interventions to improve communication also on such facilities. So what we are saying is, for every county, can we have separate structure, separate entity? This is just about a ward or two, just to have these facilities to take through to support our women who suffer such depression. So my humble motion is to actually request just to ensure that all mental wings, maternity wings are located separate ward for mothers with special needs, and also to facilitate continuous training and capacity building for health workers. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, because it's quite open, it's self-explanatory, I wish to implore my honorable senators to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. I thank you. Mr. Speaker, may I call Honorable Sifuna, because this also involves his Nairobi County as a senator, to support, and I'm sure other colleagues are going to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sifuna.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support, to second this motion. That in fact, Mr. Speaker, this entire question of access to health care in this country is a very big debate that we must have as this House, because the issues that are involved are quite wide-ranging. Sometimes when people rise to propose that we extend certain, facilities in order to accommodate other things that are ancillary to the main services that are provided at a hospital, it is very tempting for many people to just say, but we don't even have the maternity wards. We don't even have enough beds in these hospitals. What is our priority? But I believe that this is a very timely motion, Mr. Speaker, because it is something that is affecting very, very many women, Mr. Speaker. Just a cursory search of what prenatal and postpartum depression are, Mr. Speaker, will show you that it actually happens and affects both sexes. And one of the easiest examples, Mr. Speaker, is a matter that is actually live before the Senate Committee on Health. Mr. Speaker, you imagine a young father who takes his wife in for delivery at a county hospital like Mama Lucy, which is a matter that we're looking into right now, is blessed with 2 bouncing baby children, but then the mother dies under very, very painful and traumatizing circumstances, Mr. Speaker. I honestly believe that that young man, Robert, the wife of the husband to Maureen Anyango, who died at Mama Lucy, is in very, very deep depression, because he appeared before that committee, and I was there. That is a man who is actually broken, Mr. Speaker. I would not wish any person to go through what that young man has gone through. The stories you hear of those delivery, rooms in some of our hospitals are quite horrific, even just being there as a human being. Even if you live in good health and with your children in good health, the things that you see there you cannot unsee, Mr. Speaker. And I'll try and paint a picture for you. Just for instance, we were told that out of the hospital capacity, the bed capacity at Mama Lucy, to accommodate only 56 women, we have 150 women sharing those 56 beds in the maternity wing. I'm telling you, even from just a position of hygiene, I don't think that any one of us want to find ourselves in a situation where there is 3 of you to a bed and you are in the way of labor. I mean, really, Mr. Speaker, we must ask ourselves, what is the mental toll that being in such circumstances takes or has on the mind of a human being? So, Mr. Speaker, we have to look at this problem holistically. We do understand that we have problems in our facilities. We have been told horror stories, including that of the 128 women there at Mama Lucy who were to give birth, they had only one nurse attending to them. Mr. Speaker, I don't think that something as beautiful as childbirth should result in the sort of trauma that we are seeing resulting to the people who actually seek these services. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would actually expand my colleague senator's motion to include even counseling for the fathers, because of the examples that I've given you that people have been through. I know that in certain cultures, not ours, Mheshimiwa Boni Khalwale, the conditions are so conducive, Mr. Speaker, that even the fathers are allowed in to witness and welcome their own children. But I don't think that is an invitation myself or Khalwale will ever take up, given the circumstances of our Kenyan hospitals, Mr. Speaker, because it will leave some of us scarred for life. I don't know how much of counseling we would require to be able to come back to our, normal selves. So, Mr. Speaker, without wasting too much time, I think this is timely. This is not an imagined problem. It is a real problem. We do have capacity challenges in our hospitals. While we address those capacity challenges, I do believe that we need to have these counseling services available for mothers who go through this trauma, and even for fathers, such as Robert, who lost his wife, his dear wife, in the process of just, getting their children. So, Mr. Speaker, those few remarks, I rise to support and second the motion. I thank.
There are days when you think, oh, leo na deserve, so order a Glovo. Days when plans inachelewa, what if you order a Glovo? Or days when you can't control everything. Or yes, because on Glovo you can order anything you want. Glovo, you order, we get it.
Yo, what up? My name is DJ Piera McKenna. Listen,
KBC Channel 1 is the only channel that is showing World Cup exclusively. Keep watching it. Have a good time.
Tulipatana Tinda, ona sasa tuko mbele ya kanisa, hapa ndolo vito imetufikisha. Aibu oh, aibu oh, waliosema mimi nawe hatutashinda, ona sasa miaka ngapi imepita, and this love is getting sweeter, baby. Your love is getting sweeter, baby. Woman, your love is getting sweeter, darling. Fine wine. Your love is getting sweeter. Nakuletea wine, tena fine wine, because your love is getting sweeter.
Na vituko na visanga vyote vimekwisha, roho na mikono pia nimesafisha, cheki sande mimi nawe tuko kwa misa. Aibu aibu, nimeshindwa kusare mavela, zinanipa nguvu ya kusaka hela, and this love is getting sweeter, yeah. Fine wine. This love is getting sweeter, baby. Fine wine. This love is getting sweeter, darling. Fine wine. Your love is getting sweeter. Najona benda